that I don't have that. So I don't know so I'll just keep it to myself, or I'll just talk to my family members. And so my hope is really that this conversation will move people in a direction to at least continue to ask more questions, to continue to have more conversations, and to continue to really support. Because we talked about kind of the self-medicating and the self-harming, and the schizophrenia, and you have people with bipolar. If I could show you how big the DSM-5 we have right now that we use as professionals to diagnose based on the symptoms a client is coming in with, if I could show you how thick that book is, I would. And it's unfortunate. But we're in a situation to where we can have the support. And we can utilize the support, and that's like the biggest thing for me is just reach out, and know that just because someone is feeling, maybe they're feeling down and out, maybe they were self-harming one day, and then the next day, oh, things are okay, they're fine, they're good, they're smiling. That doesn't mean that's true.
That's that swing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that
swing.
that's
Absolutely.
How they feel, because I can put on a face.
Absolutely.
I can smile. I can get up and go to school. I can go to work.
Absolutely.
And as soon as I'm home, or as soon as I'm by myself, I can go back to self-harming. I can go back to having these suicidal thoughts. And so, I think it's really important for people to know, first of all, take care of yourself, because if you can't take care of yourself, and figure out what that means, because that's going to look different for everyone. For me, I got a bike for Christmas. So, and I bought myself a jump rope. So I know I need to go ride my bike, and I need to go jump rope, and I need to go pray, and I need to go talk to somebody. Like, that's for me. I know how to take care of myself. But for someone else, it could mean, okay, I'm really struggling with some depression right now. I'm really withdrawn. I don't want to talk to people. I want to remain kind of within myself. I have these thoughts going on in my head, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm afraid to go out and let someone know, because they might judge me. Like, for you, self-care, taking care of yourself really might mean, okay, reaching out to a professional for help, and knowing that it's okay. And also knowing that just because you meet with one counselor
don't mean
they might not be the best fit. So you have to be able to realize for you what's going to work for you, and who you will be able to connect with, and know that you don't have to stay even in that therapeutic relationship if it's not beneficial. Because what I don't want is for people to feel like I can go meet with a counselor and they're pushing me, 110 steps back from where I was, but I have to stay with them. And that's not true. That's not the case.
So good. So good. I was laughing. So good. So vital that you can choose. If it's not working, choose to cut strings. Thank you, but I got to find. But make sure you find somebody to go to. Just don't cut strings in your, make sure that you got something already in place that you can, so that you don't, you don't progress your which you've already achieved. I remember, I was laughing at you because we were in a bad state here in my home, because my son was in all the, it was like popping like popcorn. And I remember I went running out the house looking for help, and I don't live very far from Frontier. I didn't know which building to go into, so I went into a building, and I'm like, I probably looked, and they were like, I was like, I need help for my son, I need help. And she looked at me, Shakesha, she looked at me, she said, you need help. I said, I probably do.
Yep.
But right now, it ain't about me. Right now, it's my son, he need help. And, when you talked about looking for help and the importance of talking with somebody, finding somebody, and the lady looked at me, she said, you need help. Yep. And I said, you probably right. And
go ahead.
Huh?
I was going to say, you talked about kind of your son and how he was basically transitioning into adulthood as this all happened with him and with his mental health. But I also want to, talk about like kids. I've worked with kids for so many years, and trauma or, you know, ADHD
Oh,
or
oh,
defiant disorders, you know, things like
oh,
that, adjustment disorders, all these different things. Like our kids, I
yeah.
remember a long time ago, my youngest client was like 3, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. But it's a lot of that is based on the environment
The
and kind of what
environment.
the environment.
The
But
environment.
yeah, it's a
Oh,
very big piece.
it is.
But even if you have an environment that as a parent you feel it's good, it's great,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know, like school, that's a different environment.
Oh, that's a whole different
um
environment.
that's a
Mm,
different environment, but it's also a part of that kid's story, that teenager's story, you know, the loss of a
mm-hmm.
parent and what
Mm-hmm.
that kid might be going through with trying
Mm-hmm.
to reconcile. Everybody else has their parent, I don't, why?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of really kind of tapping into a lot of these things. And that's really why because most of my
Oh,
work
can
has
I
been with
stop you real
kids.
quick?
Yes.
Bullying.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Bullying too. Bullying, being bullied and teased and
Mm-hmm. We
wow.
don't think that all of these things play a part in our overall mental health, but it does. It plays a part in how we live our day-to-day lives. And again, as a kid, they're experiencing these different things. And a lot of times you have parents or guardians or adults saying, oh, you have nothing to worry about. Like, how can you tell that child, that teenager, that they have nothing to worry about? You don't,
Yes.
even though you see them maybe a good chunk of time, maybe at home in the morning, you know, after school, at night, things like that. But who's to say what's going on throughout the remainder of their day? Who's to say what's going on social media if they have access to that, or bullying?
Absolutely.
You know, maybe either they're the one being bullied or they're the one who's bullying. There's
Yeah.
still things that are going on, and now that we're in this space with COVID, and we have so many kids, like the suicide rate
Yeah.
for our kids and our teenagers have just grown, just
Yeah.
because normally they would have that connection with like a teacher or a counselor or friends at school, and everything is online. And for some kids that works very well, but for others it doesn't. And so as a parent, as a guardian, I know that as adults we have so many things that are going on, but what are we doing to take time to check in with our kids, with our young people, to know that, especially again, if you're seeing things, say something, like really say something. And if you have what I love is that I've worked with kids and teens for so many years, but what I love is that when I have someone who said, oh, my friend told my mom that I was cutting, or my friend, or you know, my family member told my mom that I was having suicidal thoughts. And sometimes that individual is like upset with that person for telling their business, but really what you did was you possibly saved someone's life. And so it's so important to, even, you know, as adults, because it is a little bit difficult with adults, depending on your role, and if they give you permission, that release of information. If they say that, you know, if your son says, I give this agency permission to talk to my mom, and give them whatever information they need. But if he doesn't, and he's not, like you said, you know, he's not harm to himself or anyone else, or he's not, you know, being able to really take care of himself, then there's not a whole lot that you can do. And as a professional, I do my best to say, well, who is a person that you can lean on, that we can reach out to, just because you're having a difficult time. But with kids, it could be a little bit tricky. A lot of states in the country, their age of consent when it comes to mental health is much higher than Washington State. Washington State, the age of consent is 13. So at 13 years old, if you were my mom, I can tell my counselor, I don't want my mom to have any of my information. I don't want her to be able to call and schedule my appointments. I don't want her to do anything. And that's our state's, that's kind of where our state is right now. But again, if there's a danger to self or others, or there's some other major concerns, I always tell my clients, well, that release of information goes out the window. You know, there are some limits to having confidentiality, but most importantly, you do have that right to confidentiality. But I want to make sure you're safe. And if that means that if I go and tell your mom that you have this plan right now and you hate me for the rest of the time we're working together, then that's okay, because ultimately I did what I needed to do. But I also want to make sure I also say, as difficult as this is, to say, if someone wants to take their life, there is nothing that I can do as a professional or that a family member can do. Outside of everything that you've tried, because ultimately it's going to be that person's decision. And it's hard for me. I've been in this field for probably going on almost 10 years now. And it's still hard for me to say that, because people are like, what do you mean there's nothing I can do? I can pray about it. I can talk to them. I can get them help. You can, and continue to do all those things. But it's really unfortunate when you have someone who's